Okay, we are going to wrap up our eSTEM conversation today, and we're going to end with another type of current that isn't used very often, though once you go out in the field, you might end up in a clinic or in a setting that likes it. When I had never actually, I didn't, apparently I learned it in undergrad. I didn't really remember, but then I had a staff member at Old Dominion for my grad program that liked to use MENS for certain situations. So this is what we call microcurrent electrical nerve stimulation. And it's a subsensory level. It's the only one of these that are subsensory, meaning that the person shouldn't feel it. We are not actually trying to stimulate any of the sensory nerves like we've been talking about for all of the other types of stim. So it's usually 1/1000th of the amperage of TENS, less than 1,000 microamps. The pulse duration is super long. It's about 2,500 times longer than TENS. And that combination gives us this subsensory attempt. It's not attempting to excite the peripheral nerves at all. So you're not targeting A betas, A deltas, or C fibers. You're not targeting motor fibers. It's a constant DC current, usually. There are machines that are AC that do it, but usually they have a transformer in there that takes it to a DC current. The efficiency has not been substantiated, but it's claimed to decrease pain, increase range of motion, improve wound healing. And the theory is that it affects the biophysical effects in the body. So the low amperage current increases the level of ATP, which encourages amino acid transport and thus increases protein synthesis. It's also claimed to reestablish the body's natural electrical balance and allowing the cell's ATP supplies to replenish. And you know when you're going through the inflammatory process and the proliferation phase, the ATP is the energy, and those cells are burning out a lot of energy trying to clean and trying to heal. And so if you can replenish the ATP, that's the theory. So it allows more metabolic energy for healing to occur. So the indications are usually acute or chronic pain, acute or chronic inflammation, potentially reduction of edema, really any condition where you'd want healing, neuropathies, things like that. The main question though is does it work? Usually the research is really not so great on this. If it's something that interests you, I encourage you to try to find some evidence-based stuff on it. It could be slightly interesting because new things come out all the time, but it's really a mixed bag. So it's not one that we're going to require you to do. A couple of our machines have the option on it. If you want to try it on yourself, feel free. But again, the idea being that the treatment time is usually having to be so long, like hours at a time, in order for this to really be effective, that being attached to a machine isn't the way to go. So they do have portable MENS devices, which are thought to be more practical to actually get the results that some of the articles claim. But the ones in our machines, you're not going to have someone set up to the machine for 4 hours a day. It's just not really practical. So our final kind of two pieces here. This is the electrical stim current kind of flow chart. So just kind of helps you make those decisions of what each type is doing, and again has kind of some of the parameters set and kind of some of the goals. Again, over here is our subsensory, our MENS. Not a lot of information on that. Another thing from your book is just this electrode placement chart. So again, seeing the direct placement, being able to place directly on the painful site, being able to use stimulation point, especially if you potentially, with the pads or with a probe. Spinal cord level is one that we haven't talked about or used a lot, but it's something that you could look at. And then the contiguous, and which is our cross that we do for our IFC. And then also talks about a dermatome and contralateral placement. So you can play around with some different pad placements as well. So that wraps up our conversation on electrotherapy. So now it's all about practicing and getting really good at using these, and really practicing understanding your theories and knowing your indications and contraindications.